Welcome to World History on a Page, Part 6. We began in Part 1 by drawing a diagram of Europe and Western Asia, and then we added the Eastern Asia, and now we're going to go on today with drawing America down here, and we'll end up in another part with Africa along the bottom crease. So you'll be drawing yours along this same sheet of paper, but I'm going to use this sheet so that you can see it a little bit better. And so on the crease that we're going to use for America, most of the major empires in the history of the Americas occurred either in or near Mexico or in or near Peru. So we'll divide them in that way. In Mexico, around 1200 BC, came the major civilization called the Olmec, which has left a lot of statues and artifacts, and that continued pretty strongly until 400 BC. Every time on this part, when I draw a line like this, of course, the people don't disappear. It's just that the empire by that name has become less predominant. The people are still there. In another part of Mexico, the Zapotec civilization developed, starting around 700 BC, and this one continuing here to the 700s. Then a civilization centered around a city started around the 300s. The city was called Teotihuacan, and so I'm going to write just the T-E-O, and that also continued until about the 700s, and the reason both of these ended was because of an invasion of warlike tribes. They were called the Chichimec. One of those Chichimec tribes that we have ruins for is called the Toltec. And from the Toltec, some of them eventually became the familiar group, the Aztecs. They were forming their civilization in the 1400s AD, which means they didn't have much time before the Spaniards showed up in the early 1500s and militarily defeated them. But it was around the 1520s when the Spanish created their colonies. So that's the Spanish-American colonies. Meanwhile, in Guatemala, from about 300 to about 900 was the time of the greatest brilliance and glory for the Maya people, or Maya. And then their civilization moves to Mexico, to the Yucatan Peninsula, and that's where the Spaniards encountered and defeated them. And of course, their self-rule ended, but the Mayan people still exist to this very day. I'm now going to go down to South America, to the area around Peru, and there are a lot of groups which often were in different parts of the area, but we'll start right at 1000 BC with the Chavin culture, C-H-A-V-I-N, and then a little bit later, and crossing over into the AD time, the Paracan. And starting around 200 AD, two groups in two different places, the Nazca and the Mochica. And then there's another one of those cities that becomes an empire to itself. The city is called Tia, T-I-A. The complete name is Tiahuanaco. And that continues on until 1000 AD. The Mochica, later it develops into the Chimu. And then when the Inca started creating their empire, also in the 1400s, they absorbed and defeated the Chimu, but it wasn't long then until they were defeated by the Spanish. Now, as far as North America, some of the civilization areas that were long-lasting and left a lot of evidence, way back here at 1000 BC, we have the Adena culture in Ohio. And after that, the Hopewell culture in Mississippi. And then the ancestors of today's Navajo Indians, they're popularly called the Anasazi, which just means old ones. And you may be familiar with one of their famous ruins, Mesa Verde, which reached its height around the 1300s, but then was deserted as the tribes moved south and became the present tribes that you find down in Arizona and New Mexico. Meanwhile, as you know, the British and the French, from the 1600s on, were making colonies in North America. The United States of America becomes independent in proclaims it in 1776. The Spanish colonies, most of their wars of independence were in the 1820s, and so that gave us the present countries of Latin America. And finally, in 1867, Canada received home rule for its own affairs, although it stayed under the British king and queen. So that completes our quick survey of cultures in the Americas. The details are found, and the dates are found at my website, www.foundbytes.com. And when we go to the next part, which will be the last part, we'll use the crease along the bottom to draw diagrams of Africa.